Welcome back to the It Starts With You podcast. I am so incredibly excited for our guest today, Rahul Sharma. Rahul, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Julie. It's a pleasure to be on your show and talk about my journey and learn more about the show as well.
Yeah, I am so excited. So I met Rahul at the National Speakers Association, their large event, so NSA. And we were sort of in a group together with a mentor, kind of getting us acclimated to this group and this amazing event. And we had so many great conversations. So I'm so excited to talk a lot about leadership today with you, with your experiences, with some of the mindset pieces that you bring in. So, Rahul Sharma is a true force of inspiration and a shining example of what it means to be a leader. His commitment to helping others achieve their full potential has made him a sought after author, certified public speaker, and coach. Rahul's passion for personal growth and development has touched the hearts of many, inspiring audiences around the world to reach for their dreams and embrace their true potential. Through his invaluable insights and guidance, Raul has helped countless individuals and teams unlock their full potential and create positive change in their lives. With an unbreakable spirit and dedication to excellence, Raul continues to inspire and empowers others to be their best selves. When he is not busy changing lives, I love that. He enjoys spending time with his family, playing Sudoku, swimming, and exploring new opportunities for growth and learning. I love when people add a little bit of that personal touch on there so we can actually get to know you a little bit.
Sure, and I always talk about in leadership is knowing your people beyond their name, job responsibilities, behind the laptop, what they are doing. It's so important as a leader. So I always try to have that personal connection whenever I am speaking with people, as you can see in the bio as well.
I love that piece. And already, look at it, already he's giving us value in these great tips we just started. Really knowing your people, because I think a lot of leaders put on this like leadership hat, and sometimes then they like take it off and they put on like a human hat, but they don't always wear they don't always wear both. So I would love to just jump right in, because you obviously have had a lot of experience in the leadership space. You've done a lot of things. You're a speaker. You've got different books out there that I want to talk about. But I'm so curious to just hear what really got you into. So you were in the leadership development space. What got you into this space now, where you've sort of dedicated really your life to these books and to helping other people? Was there a certain catalyst or thing that gave you that momentum to do this?
Sure. So, thank you for asking this question because this is really a very critical fact for someone who is very much on their comfort zone in the corporate job. We typically get so used to, so we don't feel doing something beyond. And this incident happened with me in 2015 when I first participated in a Les Brown conference, and I was in Florida. And what I learned in that 2 day conference was that every one colleague of mine or the participants, they had amazing stories, and they have been helping people through their stories, and their reach was far beyond an organization. Their reach was to those common people, to every individuals around the world. And I just thought to myself that my reach is only limited to my own organization, and how I can step out. And that's where I thought of going into public speaking, spreading my message to people. But honestly, Julie didn't have the courage to leave my corporate job. So I held on to my dreams. I still continued with my corporate job, and finally, post COVID is when again a self realization came to me that, man, this is the time. In 2022, I started working on my book. It was out in May 2023, and the thought process that if I can change someone through my words, if I can help someone who is in the imposter syndrome, or probably who's low in their life, I would be very grateful. I see many young people uh, not taking care of life, going in a different direction in spite of having great potential. So the whole thought process is to help them, impact them, so that they can do wonders in the world. So that was the game changing moment for me, the Les Brown event, Julie.
I love that you share that too, because just think about that. So you went to this event where, he's impacting all of these people, this ripple effect that's going out to all these people, and then you see it and go, oh my goodness, now I have a message to share that can change other people's lives. And now you're going out there and you're speaking and you're writing these books through your words, and now you've got that ripple effect. And it just gives me goosebumps because I think that is the power of people who are speakers. Obviously, I'm a fellow speaker and coach and in the leadership space. And when you are that thought leader, when you're that leader, you are the ripple effect for other people. And I just think that that's so incredibly powerful because people need to hear what you have to say.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
I want to touch a little bit on a point that you just made because, this is obviously a word we hear a lot in leadership, especially for, growing leaders, is this imposter syndrome. So this feeling like, I think most people have heard this at this point, but if you haven't, imposter syndrome, lots of different definitions, but feeling like you don't belong, maybe looking around in a room and going, who am I to be here? Questioning your value. So, that's a lot of the mind chatter that comes with imposter syndrome. Can you share a little bit more about maybe how you had experienced this or how you've seen other people growing in organizations experiencing this and what the impact is?
Sure, sure. So the way I look at this is leadership would be very easy if it wasn't for people. And the moment we become leader or a manager because to do difficult job, not to do easy job. And I recollect a research that was done by Gallup International, and they polled almost 1 million people with who said that they had successful boss or they had a great boss. And so they asked this question and they wanted to know them why they think they had a great boss. The number one reason why they think they had a great boss because their boss or a leader was willing to listen. Their boss was leader was having a very good connect with them. Whenever they need them, the person was available. So at times we as leaders we think that we need to move mountains to earn respect, we need to move mountains to build that trust, but many a times it is these small things that makes a difference. For this imposter syndrome, sometimes we do not know who we are. So we come into this leadership role. Many times, probably it is our wish because we think that leadership is very fancy because we see our leaders wining, dining, traveling, meeting with people. So we think that, okay, this is for me. But we do not realize what all that individual has taken, what all sacrifice that person has done to be at that stage. So my request would be to know ourselves, do that self introspection, why you behave the way you behave. If you are a successful individual contributor, does not mean that you will become a very successful leader. So if you are thinking that you do not belong here, something is not right. Maybe it's the environment, maybe it's the people that you are working with, maybe it's the job that you are doing. I always say that we need to be at a workplace where we love what we do. When we love what we do, then job is not a job. It's a part of your life. So, folks, if you are really having this imposter syndrome, my recommendation would be do that introspection, know your own leadership story, unleash your strength, know your strength first of all. And last but not the least, the best investment that you can do is on your own self. Invest. Throughout my corporate journey, I have always been focusing on learning from others. So going to the events or a webinar or listening to podcasts. Podcast has been last 2 years probably I've been more involved in podcasts, but going on events is very very important. And last but not the least, Julie, is have a mentor in life, have a coach. This is something I miss when I was growing up. I didn't had that one dedicated mentor. Yes, I was having different coaches, but as I grew up, when I came to this corporate world, fortunately, I was able to get a mentor, and that really made a difference in my life. So I would highly recommend people having a coach or mentor in their life.
I love that. And I was going to ask you, you went right there because, when you talk about that self introspection that's so key. And I see that as well, especially, well, I want to say new leaders, but honestly, I work with a lot of executives too who have never been given themselves the opportunity to really know that. A lot of the times in leadership, and, in my experience, it's so focused on the external things. Like, we're going to send people to training, we're going to learn a new change management model, we're going to learn, about our personality styles, which is a little bit of introspection, but doesn't still get as deep. We're going to learn, strategy. And the piece that's really missing is people to really understand who they are, what they really want, what their style is. And that's often getting in the way. And then all of a sudden they get into these leadership roles and they look around, they're like, do I even want this? They're either burnt out or unhappy because they never did that work. And so I want to point out, a couple of the things that I wrote down 4 kind of key things that people could start doing is to really, own and know their leadership story, to know their strengths, to have that mentor and coach, and to invest in themselves. What is, if somebody's like, okay, I need to, like, what does that even mean to know, like, my story or know my strengths? Like, what are some things that people could start doing, or things that you've seen that has really helped people?
Sure. So I will give you some sneak peek of my upcoming workshop, because this is one of
Yeah.
the module that I am focusing on, is discover your inner landscape. And before I do that, I just want to share one other thing which most of the corporates don't do well, is promoting of people into leadership role is largely dependent on their contribution as individual contributor. So if they are successful individual contributor, immediately we try to move them to the next leadership role. In my opinion, that is one of the bigger mistake or biggest mistake we make as corporates, because we need to ensure that that person whom we are moving up in the ladder is the right person, because that person will be responsible for not one, maybe many people's life or careers. So if you are giving a responsibility of many people on someone's who is not ready or not prepared, you are not setting up one person for failure, you are setting up 5 other people for failure. So that would be my recommendation to leaders. Invest on your own people before they become leader, not after you are promoting them. Coming back to your question on that self introspection, I would recommend, and it is a hard thing. So this is another story. When you are going for any of these workshop or any of the trainings, be prepared that you need to do some work. You will not get everything on your silver platter and you will walk out with all the knowledge. So you have to do that homework. And this inner landscape is also about homework, where you need to think about the questions, something like, who are the people who inspired you from a leadership perspective? Who are your role model? What are the experiences that have shaped your life the way you are behaving today? What are some of the gifts that you have that you can offer to the world? So those questions which are giving you your inner strength, or probably the inner values. Another question would be, write something about a time when you have helped someone. What did you do? What was that aspect that really helped people? And last but not the least is, it's all about the attitude. Do this exercise, which is write one thing about a friend, your favorite friend. First of all, identify who is that good friend of yours. And second question would be, write about one thing that you like about him or her. I have seen in my experience, when I have done this exercise, 90% of the time, Julie, the response is about the attitude of that individual. So it's the attitude that really matters. Attitude of a leader, attitude of your individual. Instead of thinking about I have to do this, think about I get to do this. And that really, it's about the mindset change. When we are into that self-pity mode, oh my God, I have to drop my kids to school. Oh my God, I have to prepare lunch for them. But if you have a mindset that, okay, I'm so privileged that I'm getting an opportunity to drop them, opportunity to make coffee for my wife, I love it. and definitely try to make it 4 to 5 times a week, but
Oh,
focus
can you
on.
come over to my house, Raul?
No, so coffee and tea is my thing at home. She helps us with the breakfast and the meals. But yes,
Mhm.
most of the time I help her and serve her coffee on her desk. So,
Mhm.
so
That's the best.
basically, think about, you get to do this. You
Mhm.
are grateful for this opportunity, rather than thinking about, oh my God, I have to do it again. The moment you think about you have to do it again, or why me, then it's a your attitude is very, very different.
Mhm. Oh, this is so key. If for those of you who are listening, I really want you to stop and like rewind it and listen to that again, because not only is this a leadership lesson, this is a life lesson, right? And that's the thing with leadership that I really truly believe, and I'm hearing you say too, is like we're humans, and so our leadership in our lives, all of these things are integrated, and we've really seen that over the last few years, in people's lives. Like we can't always leave one or the other where like at the door. They impact each other, and this attitude. And another way I hear people talk about a lot is like the energy, like, oh, I just love to be around their energy. And you can think right now, I'm sure everybody listening can think of somebody that when you are around them you feel so drained, you feel so defeated, you're just like, oh, I have to go to a meeting with that person. And then I'm sure you can think of somebody who, when you walk into a room, you just feel more energized, you feel like capable, you feel excited. And I think you hit on a really key point around this idea of people who feel like they have to do things. Like, I have to go to this meeting, I have to do this, versus this is a gift, this is an opportunity, I get to do this. What have you noticed in your life and in your leadership when you made that shift? If you had a moment where you were like, "Oh my goodness, this is like that, this is a huge, realization for me." What did you notice?
So I notice the satisfaction that you get when you have a thought process of I get to versus I have to. I have to. It's a lot of frustration comes to your mind. You feel helpless at times, but that the moment that thing changes to that get to, then you feel privileged, and you feel happy from inside. So happiness comes in when you change this perspective. And it has happened with me. I mean, post I think the COVID period as well. There were post COVID, when kids were that entire year they were at home.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like four of us at home, everyone on their laptops or Chromebooks, and it was a little challenging. Yes, the good part was we were able to have fun together, but then it was challenging for people, feeding them at time. We have our calls, we have our meetings, and what happened is, initial period of COVID, the corporates were not able to figure it out how to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times it happened that, okay, man, you need to be on your Zoom calls, or you need to be on your Teams calls. We need to know that you are working. So that trust deficit was there,
Mm-hmm.
because previously it was all working from office, suddenly got changed. So I felt that, hey man, I need to give more, I need to give more. And then, as and when you were hearing those layoffs happening, you were more focused on giving it more. So it really made little challenging during those times. And but then when you have that thought process that, okay, I get to cook meals, I get to walk them out, I get to take them to the classes, it really made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Really made a difference.
And this is such a pivotal piece because, in my experience as well, I feel like this mindset piece, when we bring it into the leadership perspective, is not something that is often talked about in corporate. Anytime, like mindset, I don't think we really even use that word when I was in leadership development in organizations. It was self reflection, maybe self awareness, but we didn't really spend a lot of time on how important. And we know from a science perspective, I always tell people this too, it's based in science. We're not just talking about, some people say, oh, that fluffy stuff or that woo stuff. It's like, no, you're actually wiring your brain. And if we want people to show up in leadership roles, and like you referred to before, they are now responsible for so many other people's lives. We need this up here. We need this mindset to be wired in the way. And you mentioned something before we actually hopped on recording about this idea of this, accidental leader, and this idea of, people being put into leadership roles. So tell us a little bit more about what you mean by accidental leader, and what are some of the, things that you see with that.
Sure. So the way I define accidental leader is a leader who do not choose to become a leader, but because of the circumstances, they are a leader. It could be an entrepreneur. You have good entrepreneurial mindset, but probably you lack on that leadership aspect. And many a times it so happens that when you do things that you do not like, you resist. So you must have heard this concept, like people resist change, right? This is so many organizational development books are there. People resist change. But when I did my own, when I was working on a change management workshop, I did my research and found out that people resist change only when they're told to change. Think about any event when you are planning your vacation. You are traveling to a new city or a new country, or you are trying a new cuisine, or you are buying a new car. All those things are change in your life, but then you are very excited for those things. The fact they were excited is because you are choosing that change. Now, in organization, why 90% of the change management projects fail is because people are forced to change. They are not being involved in the change management. So, for accidental leader, the first challenge that they bring on for themselves is building the trust, because they are a great individual, they are a great human being. But the moment you move from a peer level to a leader, suddenly everyone become your enemy, or
Yes.
suddenly
Yes.
there is that J factor come in play, that why that person and why not me. So building that trust really becomes a challenging aspect. And I always say that focus on your own strength, focus on the opportunity, because opportunity not always will come to your lap. You need to grab the opportunities at time, and that is the time when you know that okay, you are in an opportunity, you have an opportunity where you don't have the right experience. Don't wait for your organization to send you for a training program or a coaching program. It's your life. Invest in yourself. Find out places where you can learn about leadership. Find a mentor. Find a leader who you admire. Go and learn from them. Have an hour call with them. So I think we need to take action from our own self, rather than thinking that, okay, oh yes, I've been assigned for a training workshop 2 months later or 3 months later. But you are there right now. So we need to take quick action. And sometimes accidental leader really struggle that way because they are overwhelmed with the opportunity, and they do not get proper guidance. They just get the opportunity, and then sometimes they are clueless. So they are finding their own path. So they are making mistakes and then learning. Now, it's good to make mistakes and learn, but what is the unfortunate part, that if you make that mistake for someone else, that is not right. And as a leader, I see that it happens a lot where we make mistake on someone else. We do not treat them well. We do not give them right direction. We do not give them a proper path. And then they lose trust on us. They lose trust on organization. And that's where you see the attrition happening. You will not even figure it out why the attrition is happening, but it is mostly this first time leaders, first time managers, or accidental leaders, because they don't choose the path, they are just being forced on that path.
So many, I mean, two key things that really stood out from you were talking about, just this idea of ownership and trust, right? And so what I heard you say, people really needing to take ownership of their own development, their own learning. A lot of people like to pass the buck. Well, my organization didn't train me. Well, they didn't prepare me for it. Well, or if you're an entrepreneur or small business owner, it's like, oh, well, my stuff's not getting seen. Like, whatever it is, like, what ownership can we take upon ourselves to learn, to grow, to take the action? And then the other key point being around that trust, which is so key. Once, and I think people have, I'm curious what you think. I ask this sometimes in my training sessions when I talk about trust around, some people under the philosophy that they give trust until it's broken, and other people believe that trust is earned. But either way, we need the trust, right? There has to be trust.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, that's where we see people leaving. That's where we see these cultures and the lack of culture in organizations, because there's not this trust within leadership.
Absolutely, absolutely. My take on trust is I trust everyone till the trust is broken. So by default, because if you are in any relationship, it starts from trust. So if you do not trust, we will not be able to start that relationship. So that's what I have learned, and that is what I foresee as well. That I trust everyone, and I give, because that trust really brings some bonding. At least this person is trusting me, and to build trust, in my experience, it is that your intent has to be right. Sometimes leaders have the wrong intent, and people are smart, they are able to figure it out that hey, this is the wrong intent. So our intent has to be right, and we need to give more. We need to increase the emotional bank account balance, uh, so that we can retrieve them as and when required. Um, and with this one thing I learned, that for building the trust is always be absent to the loyal. This is a term I learned from one of my workshop. I think it was a Franklin Covey workshop. Be absent to the loyal means when you are talking about someone who is not present in the room, do not talk anything that you will not be comfortable talking in front of them. So be very kind, and sometimes we talk about things uh, which when people are not around, and if they get to know those things, that's where the big way to break trust. And at times, people, when they communicate to someone else, they add it up. You know how the Chinese whisper things happen. So they add it up. It's not the real story that is going out. So just be very very cautious. Be absent. Be loyal to the absent person.
Oh my goodness. And what do you think, just hearing you talk about some of these key areas that like individuals should be doing, we'll recap those at the end because I wrote down kind of some of the key things. From your experience, working in, leadership development and now working with other people on it, what do you think are some of the priorities that organizations or top leaders should be really focusing on in order to work on some of these things in the organizations?
So one of the thing I would say is goes from the hiring. So when you are hiring people, hire people with an entrepreneurial mindset. So when you have to give them an opportunity to lead, they already have the right mindset. The second I would say is focus on L&D, learning and development. And when I say focus means you start teaching them about leadership through the early stage. Don't teach them about leadership once they are already at that stage. So in that induction, 0 to 6 months, 0 to 12 months, keep having them learn about the concept of leadership. And the third and last would be provide leadership opportunities to specifically to people in that 0 to 12 months, 0 to 24 months, through participation in committees. I have seen in many organizations, whenever the committee is formed, they're all like senior people, managers and above. I would request our leaders organizations to have a specific category of people in 0 to 3 months or 0 to 6 months, so that they get to know how things are happening, and maybe we can get fresh ideas from them when they are part of the committees. So those are the three things I would recommend to the leaders.
I love that, and being able to see that. And then, for those of you listening who maybe you're someone who is in this space where you're growing as a leader, you're growing in an organization, or you're growing a business or a company, because here's the thing, I also see this a lot with entrepreneurs. If you're a solopreneur right now, or if you have just a few people on your team, leadership is almost even, I would say leadership is always important, but almost even more important, because you are the person running your business. You are your brand. You are creating. So I don't necessarily, and we won't dive into, that's like a whole nother episode on leadership and entrepreneurship. I don't see that being talked about enough, because people are like, oh, I don't know that am I a leader? It's like, yes, you are. You're the thought leader. You're the, so if you're listening, a couple of the key areas we talked about was around having this level of awareness for yourself, and go back and, listen to some of those things that Rahul was talking about that you can be doing to help you in that space, right? So thinking about, your attitude that you're bringing, thinking about your strengths, the other thing being around that ownership. I just love that. I'm circling and underlining that one for people, because think about what ownership do you have that you could be taking, and then be thinking about that trust, and what does that mean for you? Like, think about the question I asked before: how are you giving people trust? What happens when trust is broken? And how are you building trust with, business partners, with peers, with other team members? Because once it is broken, and just think of even companies, sometimes think of companies who have lost your trust, whether there was like a breach of data or they did something to you. Like, we are like pretty gun shy to then like actually go and use that company again. So think about how important that trust is.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing I want to make sure that we touch on before we, log off here, Raul, is I want to talk about your book, because I see it behind you. I see it on the wall. And so I just want you to share with us, talk a little bit more. There it is. Talk about Habits for Miracles. What inspired you to write this? And what are some of the key things that you want to share with the listeners about this concept?
Sure. So the inspiration came in from my during my experience. I have hired and trained many college grads, many early students who graduate from the college, and I noticed that they had amazing potential, because of which we hired them. And within 3 to 6 months, either they used to leave us, or we used to ask them to go. Sometimes we are not able to really unleash their true potential, and they are not able to figure it out what they really want to do. So I thought of writing this book, which will allow people to instill those habits that will help them design their life their way. Instead of focusing on someone else, they can have their own design. So this book, it's miracles I have used as an acronym. So it's a 8 letter word, so 8 habits that can help us in designing our life our way. And the expectation is it's a probably maybe a 90-minute read with lot of action oriented strategies and some toolkits. Focus on those bites, those toolkits. If you can just do those toolkits, probably it will change your perspective. And last but not the least, don't allow anyone else to decide your destiny. You need to take charge of yourself. You need to take charge of your life. Don't be into that self pity mode. Believe that you have greatness in you. You are amazing, and you can do great things. So, take out this book. Check out this book on Amazon, and I'm sure you will love it.
Oh my goodness. Yes. We're going to make sure we put the link, because just even that, I'm like, wait, I want more, because there's so, what I love that you shared is around that there's action and toolkits in there. So sometimes what I hear people say is, they read these self-development books, which I love. I'm obsessed with all of them. And sometimes people are like, I don't know what to do with this now. Like, okay, I'm inspired, I'm motivated, I'm jazzed up, but like, what do I do with this? So I love that you're including, actionable things and toolkits, and this idea of, these habits to design your life. Like, ooh, it's just so many times, and you probably saw it too, is people are going for those external validation, those external achievements. I got this job, I got this title, I got this next certification, I got this, and we're just like piling on all of these external validation things, and then we achieve it, and we brush by it, and we do the next thing, and we do the next thing. And it's because you're always, what I've found is like you're always looking to find that happiness. You're always looking to find that success, but you've defined it wrong for you. Like it might not be aligned for you. And then a lot of the times where we see people getting burnt out then or leaving organizations, or even like high performers leaving organizations. Because I feel like what I say is they like look up from like the clouds and they look around and they go, wait a minute, this isn't even what I wanted. I don't even want to be here anymore. It's because they either weren't taking the time to celebrate, they weren't treading down the right path. And I just love that you have, these things for people to identify that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you.
Amazing, amazing. Oh my gosh, what an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all of these things around leadership. I love the conversation that we had around that and sharing about your book. So, one of the last questions I always like to ask my guests is, the name of the podcast is It Starts With You. And this is a really important message to me that came to me. And I love to ask my guests because everybody thinks about it a little bit differently. What does It Starts With You mean to you?
It starts with me means the books starts with me. I need to make sure that things are happening for me. I cannot um, I cannot have someone else do things for me. It starts with me. The initiative I have to take. I have to take that action. I cannot blame anyone for not doing things for me. So it's more of an internal introspection that everything starts with me, good or bad starts with me. So the journey starts with me.
I love that. And it goes back to your thing before around ownership,
Yeah,
and taking that ownership. And that can be really scary also and really empowering to realize like you do have ownership. You have a
absolutely.
choice. Amazing. I know people are going to want to stay connected with you and follow you. So can you please share with all of our listeners, how can people stay connected to you? Where can they find you? And what do you have going on right now that you want to share with everybody?
Sure. So our listeners can find me on Amazon as well as on Google. Just type my book name. You will be able to find my website and as well as my Amazon book. My next piece is there are two projects, but I'm starting one project next month, which is building a workshop for new managers, because that is one thing I see is missing, and a lot of new managers want to know about how they can do better. And so I want to satisfy that need of new managers, new leaders, how they can do better. The second workshop I'm focusing on is for students, primarily in the freshman and sophomore years, to help them find their career choices. Because I do believe that if you want to get your dream job, you don't have to start in your senior year. You need to start from your freshman year, and you need to do right things throughout those 4 years of your degree so that you can get your dream job. So with my workshop for students, I promise them to get their dream job. That's the hope.
I'm so glad you said that because I was like, oh, I'm gonna bite my tongue. I'm not gonna ask this question right now. I was gonna ask you before when you talked about your habits for miracles and your experience when hiring college students or people out of college, if you were bringing this to students, because how important and how amazing would it be if we weren't getting people when they're 20 years into their career now realizing that they didn't want to be doing this, if we're getting them before they even started it. So that's amazing that you're going to be bringing that. We're going to make sure that we link everything in the show notes on how to follow Rahul, where he's, where you can follow him on LinkedIn, things like that. And of course, his book, Habits for Miracles, which sounds so amazing and can help out so many people no matter what stage you are in of your career. So thank you so much for joining us. And I am so excited to hear everybody's take on our conversation. As always, the best way to thank Rahul for coming on and for sharing all of these tips is to get his book, follow him, and also share this podcast. So share this podcast out with your audience. Share what stood out for you, what tips you're going to start implementing. I know he would love if you reached out and said, hey, I love this thing that you shared with me, because we genuinely come on and do these things because we want to help people. So please share it, tag reach out to us and remember that it starts. And I love that you said that before. It starts and ends with you. Thanks,
Yeah.
everybody.
Thank you.